Most people approaching retirement assume one simple thing. They think they either qualify for the age pension or they don't. In reality, it doesn't work like that. The age pension isn't an on-off switch. It's much closer to a sliding scale. And once you understand that, retirement planning starts to make a lot more sense. Today, I want to walk through the basics. What the age pension is, how the limits work, and why it matters when planning retirement. No jargon, just the fundamentals. First, let's start with what the age pension is. At its core, it's a regular payment from the Australian government, designed to support people in retirement. To qualify, a few things need to line up. You must reach age pension age. You must meet residency requirements. And your finances must sit within certain limits. Those limits are assessed through two tests: the asset test and the income test. Whichever test produces the lower pension is the one that applies. In practice, this simply means the government looks at what you own and what income you receive to determine how much age pension support may apply. Let's start with the asset test. The asset test looks at the value of what you own. For example, superannuation once it moves into pension phase. Savings, shares, managed funds, investment properties, and other investments. One important point many people don't realise: your home is usually not counted. The home you live in is generally excluded from the asset test. Instead, the focus is on assets that could reasonably support your retirement. There are thresholds. Below a certain level, you may qualify for the full age pension. As assets increase, the pension gradually reduces. Eventually, once assets pass the upper threshold, the pension reduces to zero. But the important part is this: the reduction is gradual. A lot of people assume once you have a certain level of assets, you lose the pension. But that isn't how the system works. Think of it more like a dimmer switch, not a light switch. As assets rise, the pension slowly fades down, which means many retirees receive a part age pension. Not the full amount, but still a meaningful contribution to their income. Now, alongside the asset test, there is also the income test. This test looks at money coming in. That might include things like super pension payments, investment income, dividends, rental income, or even part-time work. The government assesses this income to determine how much age pension support may apply. Just like the asset test, there are thresholds. Below a certain level, you may receive the full pension. As income increases, the pension gradually reduces. Again, it doesn't disappear all at once. So why does this matter for retirement planning? Because the age pension often becomes one piece of a broader retirement income plan. Even for people with meaningful savings, what I often see with clients is people assuming they will never qualify for the pension. But when we run the numbers, they may still qualify for a partial pension. Sometimes immediately, sometimes later in retirement. And the partial pension can still be valuable. It provides a steady income base. It can reduce how much needs to be drawn from your investments. And in weaker markets, it can act as a form of financial support. In a way, the age pension can function as a safety net within the retirement system. There is another reason this matters. Even a small age pension can unlock additional benefits. For example, the pensioner concession card, which can provide access to discounted medicines and various other concessions. Depending on where you live, these benefits can meaningfully reduce living costs. Over the years, there are a few misunderstandings I see quite often. One is the belief that if you have super, you won't qualify for the age pension. That isn't necessarily true. Super is assessed under the asset test once you reach age pension age. But eligibility doesn't disappear immediately. Another misunderstanding is the idea that people need to spend everything before qualifying. Again, that isn't how the system works. And finally, some people assume they will never qualify, so they ignore the age pension completely when planning. But eligibility can change over time. Markets move, assets change, spending patterns shift through retirement, which means age pension eligibility can shift as well. Sometimes it helps to think about retirement income like a bucket. You've heard that before. Different sources fill that bucket. Superannuation, investments, savings, and sometimes the age pension. If one source produces less income, another source may fill more of the gap. And in some cases, the age pension becomes part of that balance. If you're approaching retirement, there are a few simple steps you can take. First, understand the age pension age. For most Australians today, it's around 67. Second, become familiar with the two key tests, the asset test and the income test. Third, estimate what your assets may look like in retirement. Super, savings, investments. From there, you can compare your position to current thresholds to get a rough sense of where you may sit. And remember, eligibility can change over time. The key thing to understand is this: the age pension is not all or nothing. It works on a sliding scale. As assets or income increase, the pension gradually reduces, which means for many Australians, the age pension still forms part of retirement income, even if it's only partial support. If you're approaching retirement and want structured guidance rather than figuring all of this out alone, I work with Australians in exactly that position. You can find details below.